Hey guys, welcome to the Refined Savage. This week on the podcast, we have Evan Armstrong from Viking Coffee. Evan is a strength and conditioning coach at Bowling Green College in Ohio, and he owns Viking Coffee, which is some of the best coffee I have ever tried. So check this out. We talked about a lot of things, went down the rabbit hole on coffee, but we talked about strength and conditioning and a whole bunch of other stuff. So check it out. Hope you enjoy it. See ya. The mighty, the powerful Evan Armstrong. What's happening?
Not much.
How was the drive up from Bowling Green?
One bad.
Yeah.
It's actually really smooth.
Not too bad.
No.
It's a kind of a flat, nowhere journey from that Toledo area out here. So the way I got to know you is just through your Instagram page. I like your Instagram page. You're like the second person I've had on here where I just saw their Instagram page. I dug it, and I had you on here. Kim Root was the other one who was she was a stunt woman out of Cleveland that we had on. So,
oh, really?
Yeah, it was really good. But what do you do out in Bowling Green?
So I do quite a bit of different things. As I mentioned to you when I got here, I've done strength conditioning. I've been an intern. I started in 2015, working there when Coach Baber's staff was there. Got introduced to that. I kept doing it, kept rolling with it, and eventually it got me a paid intern spot there. And I've been doing that for the past 2 years. My contract with them just ended this past May, so no longer getting paid there. I'm still volunteering just because I love training athletes.
Yeah.
So it's been one thing that when I got into it, I'm like, this is what I want to do as a career.
Right. Are you working on mostly Olympic sports, or are you working with the football team, or what?
When I first started, I worked predominantly with the football team, just because how it was set up. The head guy, he was football, and then maybe one or two other sports. And then when that staff left, we got in a whole new arrangement. One of the guys who'd been there long term, I think he's been there 9 years now. He went from associate to director, so he's doesn't deal with football at all. Is the new guy who came with the new staff. That's his deal, football. I did football throughout my paid internship, and then I trained tennis.
Okay.
And then this year now I'm pulling myself out of football. We have two new paid interns there. That's their job.
Yeah.
That's football. So I'm kind of going back and helping out with Olympic sports.
Yeah, they tend to bring in their own people, and those guys travel with them and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What's the degree program like there for strength and conditioning?
For strength conditioning, they're really...
What is it? Is it kinesiology, or what's the actual degree?
There's it's called, what is it? It's like HMSLS or something, like human something.
Yeah, they always make it sound like it's super scientific.
Yeah, it's kinesiology and then sports administration. Those are the two main ones, I think. Most athletic trainers then strength conditioning people go for.
Right.
I went into sports administration for mine just because I did exercise science undergrad. I'm like, I liked it. What their focus was, it didn't. It's just okay, cool, EKG doing sprint tests and stuff like that. It's just that's cool. It's neat. It's not what I want to do.
Yeah, I'm much more interested in the nuts and bolts of how to get people stronger and faster than I am the effects on the body or at the mitochondria level. That stuff's great. It doesn't hold my interest very long. I want to hear about what this guy who made an Olympic team did, or this guy who played in the NFL and was a little bit undersized for 20 years did. I'm not as interested in, and that was really hard for me when I was taking the NSCA test. Was this science? My wife could have taken it, being a nurse. She would have breezed through it because I think it's probably pretty low level science for someone who has a medical background, but. For meatheads, it doesn't hold my interest very much.
I agree with you. When I first started, I got my what do they even call it? Pretty much the Olympic certification for Olympic weight training. I got that, and it was a weekend course. You go in, you sit down, they take you through it.
Yeah.
It's that was easy for me. I understand it. They walk you through it. You do it. You learn. Awesome.
Right.
CS on the other hand, it's I have to sit down, I have to look, I have to read through a book, and it just takes me back to undergrad. I'm I like it, but at the same time, I don't like it because it's too much science, I feel like, for me.
I remember when I took it, they sent me, you got the study pack, and they sent me these, and I'm sure it's different today because the technology is different, but I got these sleeves and sleeves and sleeves of cassette tapes So you would pull out a cassette tape and put it in, and you'd play it, and you have to rewind it, play it again, So they sent me probably 15 or 20 of these cassette tapes to listen to, plus the book, And I can't even imagine kids looking at that today like, what the hell is this? But yeah, it was total nonsense. But it's extremely in depth. I think. Did you get getting your CSDS?
I have not.
Okay. No. Is that on the horizon or?
Yeah, it's something on the horizon. What I should have done is I should have done it when I was still a paid intern. I would be able to not have to pay for it out of my own pocket. Yeah. But now it's kind of come to the point where I have to pay for it out of pocket.
You have to have it if you're going to work at the college level, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I figured that.
Especially with all the past year or so, all the strength coaches have kid had rhabdo and come to find out they weren't certified, and it's just they're
who was that? Somebody that was just recently. I can't remember who that was.
There's one, I think, the Maryland. They're going through one right now. I know it was Maryland. I think it happened at I want to say Kent State last year, and I think Oregon was another one.
I remember the Oregon one when that happened. Yeah, and bad programming is bad programming, and some kids are more susceptible to others to that kind of stuff. It really doesn't matter what certificate you have on the wall, but it's just a legal way of covering your butt and covering the school's butt. And the NSCA has kind of cornered the market on we have the rights to all that. If you're going to be a strength coach, you have to have this certification. I would like somebody else to come out with one that kind of challenges that monopoly they have on it. And, because I don't think the NSCA is necessarily producing high-level strength coaches. I think you have high-level strength coaches who are forced to get an NSCA certificate.
Yeah. Because I have this thought of in a perfect world, you wouldn't need to have good coaches wouldn't necessarily need to have a certification, because if you're a good strength coach, if you're able to coach them, you mean well, great, good for you. You're producing good results. Treating them fairly, treating them well, you're building them up. Then again, you have other strength coaches we need that just to keep others in check because they're going to go off and do something stupid.
Yeah, and it's similar to what you see in CrossFit. To be honest with you, the CrossFit Level 1 cert, have you gone through that at all? So the CrossFit Level 1 cert is a weekend cert, and to be absolutely honest, it's a really good hands-on cert when it comes to teaching movement patterns. So, teaching the squat or teaching the deadlift, and because you work up a sweat. You're in there and you're just working on your technique in the deadlift for 45 minutes with people watching you in small groups, and it was from that angle, it was a good experience, but. Just like the NSCA cert, no one is going through the CrossFit Level 1 cert and becoming a good instructor or a good coach. And ideally, like you said, you'd be able to have strength coaches do their thing, and the good ones will prevail and make money and run successful businesses, and the bad ones won't. But that's really not the way it works, because your clientele doesn't really know much about what's good and what's bad. And my guess is even football coaches in most cases don't know really what's good or bad, because they've been so focused their whole career on the X's and O's and getting the right people in the right positions and letting the strength coach be strength conditioning handled by an expert or a buddy of theirs who's worked with them their whole careers, And I think you're right. In an ideal world, it would all work out, but you just kind of need something to say, I've put the time in, I guess. I've done the research.
Kind of, my thing of it too, when I first started, former boss I worked for, during the summertime is when I started, so I've been through a good chunk of all the workouts that we did with football, and they made us you have to do this. They made us go through and we trained the cube. It's you have to go through and do this, because if you don't know what it feels like to train, then how can you coach it?
Sure.
Which I'm I agree on. If I don't know what running a 110 ladder feels like, then how am I going to be able to coach it?
Yeah.
How am I going to be able to encourage it if I don't know what it feels like? How can I?
And you see a lot of that with with strength coaches at the college level. I've seen guys that look like the majority of their time was spent with their head in a book instead of under a bar, and Louis Simmons' quote was, the thing that's lost from the strength and conditioning world these days is strength. You have a lot of guys who know the science behind it, but haven't actually put themselves under a bar and run, the cube or 5-3-1 or West Side Conjugate or, something like that, and actually know the nuts and bolts and how it works and how you're going to feel with a load with barbell weight and chains added to it, and how that's going to feel differently, and how to properly sit back in a box squat. I've seen the box squat taught incorrectly and done incorrectly by so many athletes, and high-level athletes who can't figure out, what Louis is talking about when he's talking about doing a correct box squat. They're bouncing off the box, or the box is super high, or their feet are narrow, or they're not pushing back. But, it just takes, like you said, getting some time under the bar and actually doing the program to be better at this stuff. It's super important.
And I think, too, in that same regard, it also comes down to you have guys who's like, well, I can do it, so you should be able to do it. And it's like, right. I think you kind of have to step back from not everyone is you.
Yeah.
Just because you do powerlifting, you shouldn't necessarily expect a 6'6" basketball player to be able to do ass to grass squat. Expect him to just get on a bar and get right underneath it.
Yeah. And going along with that, you can't be such a Nazi that you're making that 6'6" basketball player do that full squat if he doesn't have the mobility or the movement to be able to do that. We've got a guy in here who is, he's probably 50. We call him Tall Mike, 6'6", 6'7", super long femurs as opposed to his shins and torso, but his femurs are super long. It makes for squatting super difficult. So I squat him high. I squat him where he can squat to, and he's still getting a workout. And he's a close to retirement police officer. He's not he's not going to be in a powerlifting meet anytime in the future. So why do we care? We're trying to get him in the best shape possible instead of being a Nazi about how low they squat or how pretty they can do a snatch or something like that. But yeah, so what do you want to do with it once you're through with the interning? Is this something you want to stick at the college level, or?
I haven't. It's something I haven't really thought about too much. I've been focusing too on my coffee business, but I mean, I like it. I've experienced football. I know what all goes through it. And when I first started, I thought I wanted to be strength conditioning coach for football, but now that I've been through it, I've seen it, I've experienced it, I'm kind of I value my time a lot. Yeah. So especially summer, in season, the fall, it takes a lot of time.
And you better be ready to move, because the head coach is going to get fired, and you go right along with him.
Yeah.
Even guys like Joe Ken, who is the best in the business, or Buddy Morris, have bounced around the country, and it has nothing to do with their strength coaching. It has to do with their head coach getting fired, because the fans weren't happy or whatever. So speaking of the coffee business, the way I found you was through Viking Coffee. And so this is a business you run out of Bowling Green, right?
Yeah.
Give me a little background on that. How'd that come about?
So it started around, I would say, probably halfway through me first getting into strength conditioning. I got in there. I remember one of the jobs was when you first got in there, you had to start the coffee pot. That was one thing, because I just started slamming coffee.
Right.
And then it got to the point where I'm drinking coffee at home, I'm drinking coffee there, and I'm buying coffee from Kroger, and I keep going through it. I'm this all tastes the same.
Right.
Whatever. I'm if I'm gonna drink it, I at least want to enjoy it. It's just I think of it just like craft beer. If I'm gonna drink beer, unless I'm just gonna go get hammered, then get the cheapest thing. But if I want to sit down and actually drink a beer, I'm gonna get something good. So I searched on the internet and come across your typical Death with Coffee, Black Rifle Coffee, Bones Coffee, your mainstays. And then I found green coffee beans, and I don't fucking know anything about coffee.
Yeah.
It's like 10 pounds of green coffee beans. I think it was like $26 from like Bourbon Coffee Traders at the time. They're out of Wisconsin. So I ordered it. No idea how to roast coffee whatsoever. Like, didn't know anything about it. Got it in the mail. I'm like, all right, cool. What can I do with these?
Yeah, right. I just have a bunch of worthless beans now.
So I look up on, get back on the internet, Google, how to roast coffee beans without a coffee roaster. I'm like, I have no idea. First thing that pops up is a YouTube video of this guy roasting coffee beans in a cast iron skillet with a wire whisk on a stovetop. I'm like, huh, okay. Watch the video. I'm like, okay, that looks simple enough. I don't know like anything about coffee. It's just like, okay, it changes color and it gets smoky. I watch a few more videos and learn about like what first crack is, which right after first crack is your typical like coffee that you'd go get at like Dunkin' Donuts. Chances are that's what they're gonna get you.
Okay.
But then in between like first crack and second crack is more of like your dark roast. So anything that's like a dark is at second crack or after.
What do you mean by crack?
So like it's an actual like cracking noise. Like if you were to take like a pencil, it sounds like a pencil snapping.
So as you're roasting them, you hear that. Okay.
Yeah, it's the moisture in the bean. It's like kind of like it's just being built up and then eventually just pops.
Okay.
Kind of like popcorn almost.
All right.
So I didn't know anything about that. I just put the beans in and I just start like going like, okay, like when's this gonna happen? And I read from like quite a few different sources. You're supposed to heat the cast iron skillet up like max temperature and drop the beans in. And like I think I went through like 4 or 5 batches before I actually got something that actually tasted decent drinking it. Then eventually after playing around with it, going through, I actually got something decent. Like this is good. Like it's pretty good. I just kept going with it, working at it, and how the business aspect of it started is I've always like kind of told myself in my head like I'm gonna run my own business one day. And I always go along with the thought of I need to be like 30, have a good paying job, have enough money to actually start it. And then watching enough like Gary Vee videos. Someone I follow a lot, and it's just like, well, that's not actually how that shit works. You actually go and do it. That's how it works. Yeah. That's how it starts. So I'm like, okay, well, if I'm going to do it, might as well do it now while, at the time, single, didn't have a job, just going to school. I'm like, fuck, I have a ton of free time.
It's perfect. It's a perfect time to do that. Yeah.
Like, I don't have any other, like, I don't have kids, I don't have a job, I don't have a girlfriend, I don't have a wife. Like, I just have school, I have my intern job. That's literally it.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm going to do it now, I might as well just do it.
No one's depending on you making a big paycheck to come home and feed them. Yeah, that's and they've talked about it a lot. Gary Vee, I think, talks about it. That's such a trap that, you work your 8 hours a day and, add in whatever for a commute and, you come home at the end of the day and you tell yourself you're going to work on your business, but you're exhausted. So you have a beer and you sit down in front of the TV set and then start it all over again. There's no, but what you have to do, and I think it was Gary Vee who was talking about this, is just, if you're going to do it that way, you're going to work your 8 hours plus your 2 hour commute, and then you're going to have to put in another 6 or 7 hours on that business. And that's where your passion is. And if you're exhausted by the time you get to that passion, you're not going to put in 100% of it. I know when we opened up Blind Dog, I had worked the same job for 19 years, and it was a crazy amount of time. And I was leaving right from a 12-hour or 16-hour work day, and then trying to go to the gym and get that done. And I'm forgetting shit at work, and the gym's suffering. And finally, I just said, "Screw this! I'm just going to go for it," and quit the job and put 100% of the energy into the gym, and then it just took off. And I think that's what you have to do. You have to put your full energy into this. I'm going to either succeed at this or I'm going to fucking starve. One of the two. And you get that fear of failure going. And I think that's how a lot of these businesses become successful.
Yeah. It's kind of where I was at last year. Is I kind of figured out like during the football season, because football has taken a lot of time out because like I'm at like the athletic center. Big, huge chunk of the day, and then on away games, I'm gone. So it's just like all my business is getting done through just like my phone. Sure. At that point, which like I can't do anything else outside of that unless I, have my laptop with me. But I'm limited there.
Yeah.
So it's just like I noticed my business suffered throughout like from September to like the end of November. My business suffered. It like did not do what it did in the summer when I had just football and then that to do with. And I kind of realized that as I go, I'm like, okay, if I'm gonna want to actually make this happen, and not just, oh, it's just a hobby on the side. If I want to actually make this happen, toward in maybe like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years that this is my job, then I need to start putting more effort into that. And then that came down to where like I stopped like hanging out with friends on the weekends or trying to make plans to see other people who might be like coming into town or doing this or doing that. It's just like I'm going here, then I'm going home and I'm working on this until like 2 a.m.
What are you working on? What do you think caused you to make that business go down? I mean, I understand that you were away from your business because you were doing things for football, but did your social media presence go down? Were you just not roasting as much coffee? Were you not promoting it as much?
I think it was a mix of everything. Social media presence went down because I wasn't roasting as much, so I didn't need to sell as much because I didn't have enough time to roast. So I think that kind of caused it to dwindle down. Over the summer, I built it up a lot. I'm like, this is awesome. I'm going to keep rolling. Then it got into football season and camp, and it went down.
And then you're starting to hate having to go to your football job because you're just watching your real passion go down the tubes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a tough street to go down for sure. What is it about coffee that you dug? I mean, what I'm guessing, not knowing anything about it, that there's an art form to it that is pleasing. But
yeah, that's one thing that got me is when I was in high school, I loved art classes. Probably my favorite, art and shop classes. My favorite 2 classes out of everything I took in high school. And I never really considered myself that good at art. Something I didn't necessarily excel at compared to like others in the class. Was like you look at it like, holy fuck, it's amazing. You look at something and like, oh yeah, that's pretty cool. You know.
Yeah.
But it got me to be creative in other aspects other than just coffee. I mean, I love beer. I love craft beer.
Do you do that too?
I don't do it myself. I drink it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that kind of allowed me to have more freedom in terms of like making something my own. And that like I roasted that, and I like the flavor of like my coffees.
Yeah.
So it kind of provides me satisfaction in that aspect. But there's also the website aspect. There's the social media aspect. Like I pretty much do everything on my own. Like I got into photography because of like social media. I'm like, if I want to do social media, I'm like, I want quality stuff. So it got me into that, and it got me into cameras. I'm like, this is really cool.
It's really interesting you say that because I've got, I'm a 44-year-old man, so not growing up with social media or even cell phones or laptop computers, it's still fairly new to me. I mean, I understand it. I know the importance of it, but I happen to have a kid here who brings all this stuff up to me. He goes, hey, the pictures need to get better. And so he's taken it upon himself to get better equipment and take better pictures. And I noticed that the better the picture is of a new piece of apparel, even though you can tell everything from a shitty picture, if it's a cool picture, we sell more gear. That's just the way it is. It's just amazing to me. I don't know how people made money before social media. I just don't get it, you know. And I don't think, well, there probably wasn't nearly as many businesses like ours that were small and able to compete, you know, because Pepsi had the market share on everything, you know. Now people can be a lot more selective in what they choose to look at, you know, and I think they go with brands that speak to them in one way or another. And if you're putting out a good product, whether that's coffee or, you know, like our clothing line, there's 2 parts to it. You put out the absolute best product you can put out. When we started our clothing brand, I always tell a story that I went down to the shop where they actually print the shirts, and Steph, who runs the company, had all these shirts laid out on the table, and all I did was feel materials for an hour. Just, okay, I like this one, let's put it in this pile, and then we would narrow it down. Okay, between these 2 that I liked, which one do I like better? And then when we do put out a shirt, that's the first thing I hear is, oh my God, where did you get these shirts? These are the most comfortable shirts. And it took a lot of time and effort to figure that out. And I'm guessing when you do your coffee, I'm sure you're doing the same way. You're testing and retesting and figuring out. And then you have to put together on the other side of that. So you have your absolute best product you can put out, but then you have to go over to that social media side and put that together to the point where people want to follow you as a human because they want to be part of that movement, part of that brand, and part of that ideal. And like I said, the way I found you is because I liked your social media, you know. So yeah, I mean, it's such a different age now that guys like us can sell stuff when there's other, you know, when Starbucks is putting out their coffee or Dunkin' Donuts is putting. Well, here's a question for you, and this drives me nuts. We travel a lot, and when I go to Toronto or I go to Austin or Key West or for God's sakes, New Orleans, I get the best coffee in the world. It just blows my mind. And then I come home and I'm drinking shitty venti Starbucks iced coffee. So I have my choice between shitty Starbucks, which tastes like burnt ass, or I can get a Dunkin' Donuts coffee that barely tastes of anything. Why isn't anyone doing coffee correctly up here in restaurants? And as a connoisseur, what are you looking at?
I've wondered that myself because I worked with there's a coffee shop in Michigan called the Crafted Bean. They reached out to me last year and I worked with them. They bought some of my coffee. And as I worked with them throughout the year and then I worked with them again this past April and May, like I noticed that in Ohio, like Northeast Ohio, like pretty much this whole area, all the way up until like you get into Cleveland, I think there's quite a few craft places over there. But like in this section of Ohio, I've noticed that like there's hardly anything like really into like actual like good coffee. Like there's your typical like local places, like in Bowling Green we have Grounds for Thought, and then Flatlands Coffee. Flatlands Coffee is more like your craft, and then Grounds for Thought is like local, like mom and pop owned since like 70s, I think.
Right.
But like other than that, like I don't see too many places, and I've wondered that too. Because you go into Michigan and it's like craft coffees all over the place.
Really?
I mean it's the same way with beer up there too, but it's like it's completely different. Like 20 minutes south of Michigan.
Yeah, I've got some friends who own a craft coffee business, and you know, I tried to encourage them. I said, man, just open up a coffee shop, put a drive-through window in it, you know, anything so people don't have to go to either Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks all the time because it's shit coffee, and I drink a ton of it. So Starbucks puts out, and nothing against Starbucks, I don't like the flavor of their coffee. There's plenty of people out there who I'm sure love it, obviously, but I'm giving them $5 a day in coffee, and I don't like their coffee. So, you know, they've done the media side of it fantastically and come up with this brand that people stick with because, let's face it, if I'm on the road somewhere and I see a sign at an exit for a Starbucks, I'll pull in and get a Starbucks. But the other side of it, where they're actually putting out a quality product that is the best product they could possibly put out, they've failed miserably in my opinion. But I'll still give them my fucking $5 every time I drive it. And I just wish somebody would put together some kind of alternative to that, you know?
That I feel like that's just like an ease of like access at that point. Because
really
Starbucks is like everywhere, and then like I didn't even know Flatlands was a thing, and Bowling Green had been open like 3 years, and I just found out about it. I think when I actually started, because I lived way on the other side of town. Then I moved across, and I found Flatlands was a thing. I'm like, huh?
I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, neither did I. It's like a just craft. Pretty much like it's a coffee bar, so they reach out to roasters throughout like America, and like, hey, we want to carry your coffee because we think it's cool.
Yeah.
And they get it in. They have it for like a month or 2 or 3, and then it's gone. It's on the next one. They bring in a bunch of different like coffee brands. The shop I worked with in Michigan, they're the same way. Yeah.
It was funny when we were in Iceland. We got off the plane and, you know, not knowing anything, but knowing it was 5 a.m. Icelandic time. We'd been up all night. We were gonna go get a cup of coffee. So we go down to the little coffee cafe area in the airport. There's 2 beautiful Icelandic women working at the counter, and I go up and get 2 cups of coffee for my wife and I, and they're like espresso size cups of coffee, and I was like, okay, can I get like 5 more of these? But that's the way. But the coffee was so much better. We would go into these, you know, coffee shops that were probably 100 years old in downtown Reykjavik, and just, the atmosphere and the coffee was out of this world, and you actually sat there and sipped these coffees because they tasted good, as opposed to just slamming it down and getting that Java stem. But it drives me nuts in this area that I can't get a good cup of coffee anywhere. And I think it when you go into stores too. So, like I said, I have these friends who own a coffee company, and I'm guessing yours is the same way. It's probably more expensive to buy your brand of coffee than, say, a Dunkin' Donuts coffee. And I think if people would just take the time to try those craft companies out and see, there is a difference between this shit coffee that I'm giving to my friends and family as opposed to something a little bit better, it's worth it. It's worth the extra $7 a bag or whatever, And
that's one thing I try to carry in my brand. And this is, so Rob Bailey, like his company Flag Northvale. I heard this. I don't know. This is like, I don't know if you ever used to watch, like old YouTube videos where you would just go on rants, like be like 10 minutes long. You just go off on rants, like cussing at the camera.
Yeah.
And one of the things they said, and this stuck with me, out of like the whole video, I can't remember which one it was from, but I just remember the one thing he said was, "Don't worry about money, give a fuck about people, and something cool will come of it." Yeah. And I kind of took that as, don't necessarily worry about it costs this much to get this much of a coffee business going. If you care about the product, if you care about your customers, care about the people, and how they like it, and what it means to them, then you'll be fine. It's going to take a lot longer, but you'll be fine.
Yeah, I think, and Rob is one of these 6 degrees of separation guys for me. So I've got a lot of friends who are actually friends with Rob, but I've never met him personally. And I think there's a guy who struggled through having to live in the place he was making his shirts and stuff like that. And I think that's a valid point. Whether, and coming from, a guy who's a little bit older than you, when we opened the gym, we had a model where we were going to put out the best product humanly possible, and it was going to look totally different than everyone else around us because, quite frankly, we thought everyone else was doing it wrong. So we didn't want to be a CrossFit gym. We liked the methodology of fast-paced conditioning movements mixed with high-intensity weightlifting. We were just going to do it in a more systematic, progressive way where we're actually going to see people gain past that 6 months of CrossFit stagnation you get. And it worked. So when we opened up the clothing brand and the podcast, we started with the podcast, and I said, we looked at sponsorships for a while, but they were a huge pain in the ass, and people who listen to the show will notice that there aren't any sponsor ads anymore because we couldn't figure out. They wanted the sponsor ads at the beginning of the show or right in the middle, and it ruined the flow of the podcast. And so I looked at it as, I'm going to put out the best possible podcast I possibly can. It's going to be free, and it's always going to be free, and I'm not going to take sponsor ads. And if I ever do, it's going to be where I want them to be in the show, and it's going to be at the end. And if people want to stick around, they can. But then when we opened up the clothing company, we were like, okay, so we're going to base this off the podcast, and what does it mean? What does Refined Savage mean, and how is it going to work within the brand? And why are people going to want to buy this stuff? And we're looking at shirts now. We just put out a new shirt, and we put a new tag on the inside that is a little saying that I say every once in a while. And it costs me like another $1, me personally, for the shirt. It's like, okay, so I'm losing another $1 per shirt. Who the fuck cares? It looks better. It's cooler. I hope people will like it. But I think that's the same thing as you treat people well, and you give them a really high quality thing to take home with them, and eventually that money will show up. Who cares if I'm losing another $1 per shirt? No. Eventually people are going to go, hey, this is cool, and you're going to sell enough that you're going to make up for that stuff. But there's a guy who has worked through that. Rob Bailey has worked through all kinds of shit to get to the place where he is now, where he's running his business. His business is gear, gear and social media. That's what he does,
There's I don't know how much like YouTube you watch, but I mean I don't pay for cable. I just have YouTube.
Yeah,
if I'm working, I just have that going. There's a couple guys in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I think like their channel's like Massthetics.
Okay.
Have you heard of them? They're like, I think they're both like early 30s, and they've been like working. They've been around their channel, I think, for like 5, 6, 7 years now, maybe. And I've watched their videos, like, they're funny as fuck.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed it. And they were, like, big time, like, still are big time, like, into powerlifting. And deadlifting, specifically. And they've been working towards, like, opening this gym of theirs called Legion Iron. And past, I think it was, like, 6 months ago, they just got, like, their place. And they've been, like, showing it, like, throughout social media. And they're like, we're not powerlifting, we're not bodybuilding gym, we're not CrossFit gym, we're not this, we're not that. Like, if you want to train, you can come here, you can train. You don't care what you do. And they've kind of, like, gone by the same model. One of the owners, he, like, just moved into the gym. Because there's, like, an exercise plan. He's like, I'll just fucking live here. It's open 24 hours because we want it to be open 24 hours.
Yeah, I've told my wife that all the time. You know, if it comes to it, I will live in that gym to make it work. And, you know, one of the good things, are you familiar with Hate Brand?
Yes.
Hate Brand, Matt Vincent?
Yep.
So if you look at that picture on the wall, that's me and Matt in my last Highland Games. And Matt was a big influence on me. And what was cool about it was I can call Matt, and Matt will call me, and we have the best conversations because we were those two meatheads on the wall who were trying to kill each other on the field throwing. And now we're in the business world, but it's really cool. So we're in this weird conglomeration of self-startup businesses. So you've got Hate Brand, which is by far and away the biggest of our group. And then you have us here with Refined Savage. And then you have Throw Bros over here. And everyone just kind of helps each other out. So, like, I bought a hat from Throw Bros the other day, and I wore the hat, and a really cool hat. So I took some social media stuff of it and showed the hat. And they bought a t-shirt for me. And you realize that when you get that group together, this isn't Pepsi versus Coke. This is a rising tide that raises all boats, you know. And if we're not dickheads to each other and we help each other out and we do call each other for advice, and it's just so much cooler environment. And you don't have any animosity for the other companies around you because you can appreciate the art. You can I appreciate Matt a lot more because now, and to a lesser extent, I'm in that same realm he is, just further down the totem pole where you're doing this media stuff and you're trying to be as creative as possible to come up with the best possible product to put out there. And it's immensely satisfying when we put out, we had this shirt over the summer, it was called Endless Summer, and it was a take on the old 70s surfer movie, Endless Summer, but instead we mixed in, we took the logo and we kind of tweaked it. We put in some Highland Games and Strongman stuff, and I released the shirt, made sure we took a good picture with it. So we had my guy come out and take a good picture. We released it, and my wife and I got on a plane to Tampa. So I put the social media post up in the morning. My wife and I got on a plane to Tampa, and I didn't look at my phone until we got to the Airbnb. And I pull out my phone, and there's like 30 emails. And I start looking at their fucking orders for the shirts. And it's just like in that 3.5 hour time frame, it was just like boom, boom. And it was pretty amazing, you know, to see that, oh, okay, so we hit all the boxes, and we put out this awesome shirt, and we had awesome social media, and people responded to it. And it was really addictive to see that, and it made me want to go back and do another cool one, you know. But like you said, there's definitely an art to this, you know. You might not have been great at art in high school, you just hadn't found your medium yet.
Yeah, no, I agree. That makes a lot of sense. There's one thing, too, I want to get into is like just like clothing apparel. Like I actually purchased this shirt because I was looking for a clothing company that was just like made American. I have no idea what I'm doing. It's just like when I got started in college, I'm like, no idea what I'm doing. I'll just buy something, see what it is, see what I like, go from there. I'm looking for like a printing press, like a screen printing to do your own. Because like, again, like Rob A was a big influence to me. Like, do the same thing. I'm like, fuck, I'll just do the same thing. Like, I'll buy my own screen printing press. No idea what I'm doing, but I'll try it out. See.
Cut out the middleman, that's for sure. I mean, I pay a lot to a company, Gonis, out of Lakewood. Now, I can't do what Gonis does, and that's why they get my money. Because they have a business They have a huge factory, and not only do they have a huge factory that can handle any order I put through there, I work directly with the owner. So she started out very small, now it's very big, but every email I send, I get the owner. Every phone call I get the owner. She meets me in parking lots between her warehouse and my business to give me shirts, so I get that personal touch. So she does it right. She is in contact with the promoter or with the customers, and I feel like she's doing something that I can't do because I don't have the patience or the skills to print T-shirts. They'd be sloppy. They'd look like shit because I know me. That's not how I'm going to want to do 20 as fast as I can, But it's worth it to me. But I think if you have those skills, why not just do it yourself? Sean Shoemaker down in Youngstown has his own clothing brand, and he's got his print press at the top of his gym, and he's up there like some fucking troll, just hammering down on these shirts, awesome. But yeah, that's the way to go if you've got the patience and the skills to do it for sure. Why a Viking? What brought you to call it that?
So the TV show Vikings. Which, I've watched it, I've liked it. But, all the time I would get, especially from, quite a few, the football kids, and then just, people you'd meet, if I were to go out, the bars with friends, I'd run into people and be like, hey, have you seen that TV show Vikings? Yeah. It's like, oh, you kind of look like the guy. I got, bald head, beard, tattoo, beard, right. It's just, I got that comment all the time. I'm like, okay, I understand, I get it. Bald head, beard, tattoos. I'm like, you know what? I like Vikings, I like the show Vikings, I get called anything, why not? Company.
Have you read anything about the real Ragnar Lothbrok at all? The guy that was the inspiration for the show?
Yeah, I've read a little bit. I haven't.
There's a really book. There's a really good book called Sea Wolves, and it's he ended up being a conglomeration of a bunch of different people, and but it is so people bitch about it not being historically accurate. Whatever. It's a great show. But he was a kind of a conglomeration of a bunch of these sea raiders. But there was a Ragnar Lothbrok. He did have these sons. One of them was Ivar the Boneless, who didn't have use of his legs and had to had to ride around in a battle and stuff. So he was a pretty interesting character. They obviously took huge leaps, to make it into a show that's entertaining. But even if they wouldn't have, he would have been a very entertaining person to follow. Especially the season 1 of that show was just knocked it out of the park,
Season 1 too is probably by far my favorite.
Yeah, especially with Athelstan kind of, having one side of his brain in Christianity and the other side in the Norse. I'm trying to remember the quote he said, where he said something about in the whispering rain I hear my God, but in thunder I hear yours. So he was he didn't know where to go with this. He was getting both sides of that mythology. And that was a real interesting concept to watch this Catholic priest have this test to his faith, and he's hearing voices, and he's going to these Viking rituals, and he's seeing things, and that was one of my favorite aspects of that show, and the relationship between Lagertha and Ragnar was really cool too. But yeah, that's a great one for sure.
Yeah, it's one thing I liked about that is what they had Athelstan and Ragnar, because I guess I don't know, but in the context of that show, how close their worlds were, but how insanely different it was. It's just it was kind of cool to watch and see how that person reacted, because you try to put yourself how would I react if I was in Athelstan's home environment, or how would I react if I was in Ragnar's home environment, completely different. I can't wrap my mind around it, but you witness it, it's okay, you can kind of better understand it, and that was really cool to me.
Can you imagine being one of these villagers or one of these monks out collecting shells on the beach or clams or whatever, and you look up and you see those ships on the horizon, you know what's fucking coming, and there's nothing you can do. There's backup is days away, and they're just going to come in and kill everybody and take all your shit. Must have been the most horrific scene you could possibly imagine. You just look up and just see those black sails on the horizon. Just, oh shit.
Here we go.
So what's next? What are you going to do next with Viking Coffee? What's on the horizon? What do you have out now? Do you have different flavors or brands or?
Yeah, I've got. Let's see, I have 5 on my website currently. I have 5 different coffees. I have two blends. Then I have 3 single origins. So I have a light roast. No. I have 3 blends. Did I say 3? I have 3 blends. I have a light roast blend and a dark roast blend. Those 2 were like the original 2 that I came up with. Kenyan and Colombian beans. One's light roast, one's dark roast. I actually stumbled upon those just completely by accident because I had gotten Colombian and Kenyan beans to try because I read those had the highest caffeine content of all Arabica beans.
Yeah.
But I guess side note, Arabica beans, there are Arabica coffee beans and Robusta coffee beans. Robusta coffee beans have more caffeine.
Okay.
But they taste worse. From what I've read, Starbucks uses mostly Robusta beans.
That would make sense.
And then Arabica beans, usually a lot more expensive, have a lot more flavor, usually less caffeine.
Okay.
And then I looked up, what Arabica bean has more caffeine? And I read Kenya AA, then Colombian Supremo. I had the most out of all Arabica beans, whether it's true or not, I have no idea. But
right.
That's what I got. And I tried them separately, and they were like, this is okay. I'm like, what if I try and mix them together? So I just did even mix. I'm like, well, shit, this is actually really good.
Yeah.
All the bad parts that I didn't like of either coffee were either really muddled down or just for whatever reason gone completely. I'm like, this is really good. So I kept with it. I started with that, and then I just kind of tried out a bunch of different things from there. And then I have what I call a tri-blend, which is 3 coffees, Kenya, Colombian, and then Brazilian coffee, which the Brazilian was really cool when I first tried it. When you roast it, it's really, really smoky. I'm talking really smoky. One time I was roasting it, and I thought for sure fire department was going to get called. And I put it in. It's kind of it has a smoky finish. If you were to have a good cigar, but it's not that really thick smoke that you would get from actually smoking. Sorry, it's cigar. It's kind of just you notice it. It's there, but it's not bad.
Yeah.
So that one was really cool. I put that together. That's probably the favorite coffee out of all of them, other than the Ethiopian, which is a new single origin I introduced this year.
Okay.
That one's really popular. It's one of my favorites as well. It's a medium roast. It's an Ethiopian Sidamo coffee for those who are coffee nerds listening. Costa Rican, and then what's the other one? Kona coffee is the other one I do on occasion, which I exclusively said it was going to be a seasonal summertime coffee because Kona, Hawaii, summertime. I need to get more of it. It's just so expensive. But that was one. It's really good. It's really complex to describe the flavors because I notice each time I've had it, I notice a different flavor.
Right.
It's kind of I've explained it to customers this is what I noticed, but you might notice something completely different.
I love Kona coffee. I love Kenyan coffee too.
Kona coffee is really good.
The first time I'd ever had Kenyan coffee was in, believe it or not, was at the African Safari Resort at Disney World.
Okay.
And they brought you the French press right out to your table. I'm like, what the fuck is this? I didn't know what a French press was. I'm I don't know, 22, something like that. And they brought it out, and it just blew my mind. I just kept getting more and more of it, and it just stuck with me. Was this Kenyan coffee? So every time I see it in the store, I pick it up.
Yeah,
we're gonna have to get together and do a refined savage blend or something, and we'll sell it on the website or something.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
We'll do something really cool with that. I'm gonna get on the website and order some coffee for sure. Where can people find you so they can get this stuff done? Give them your Instagram and websites and the whole thing.
Okay. Instagram is @VikingCoffeeCo, all lowercase, all one thing, no spaces or anything like that. Facebook, Twitter, same thing. Website is www.vikingcoffeeco.com. I guess personal Instagram page as well, Evan Armstrong 1, if you want to like see what I'm up to personal-wise, which I don't really post to that much. But yeah, those all the places I can think of to find me.
Yeah, I'll put it all in the notes too, and when we put the social media stuff out so people can find you. And like I said, I'm going to jump on there and order some decent coffee because I'm tired of the shit I get around here. All right. Well, this has been awesome, man. I appreciate you coming out. We'll I know you want to go look at the gym, so we'll go look at some stuff, and we'll go from there. We'll do this again sometime.
All right.
Good to have you on the show, brother.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Evan Armstrong, Viking Coffee. See ya.